Serious, people that have had sex with someone with a disability. What was different about the experience? Attention. Serious, tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an AMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit if you have any questions or concerns. Dated a girl with MS in the past. She walked with a limp and had some motor control issues, but the sex was pretty normal. She struggled being on top, but she gave her all. That's the thing about disabled people. The ones that really make it in life have God levels of enthusiasm for the whole deal on account of the joy of triumph over massive strife. It's like this kind of joy that needs a critical mass of suffering to understand and experience. But when you do, it must be goddamn existential awakening, judging by the disabled people I've known. They always make me feel like an entitled, jaded, unenlightened piece of shit because they've been so utterly screwed by the universe but so utterly seem to be content to exist in it. Yeah, she was a remarkable woman. We only broke up because of distance. We met randomly at a concert, but it turned out she lived about a 2-hour drive from me. We made it work for a while, but eventually we just both decided that it wasn't worth moving for because it was mostly casual and neither of us were invested enough to make a huge life change. Good girl though, I'd give her a 6.9/7 all around, not just sex. I'm in a wheelchair from a spinal cord injury when I was 17. In college, I met a girl who was also an SCI paraplegic as well as having a traumatic brain injury that left her with some memory and speech issues. We spent a lot of time with each other as part of a disabled students group, hanging in our dorms because our rooms were accessible. She had been injured when she was just 7 and her overprotective parents had kept her very sheltered. She eventually got comfortable enough with me to confide that she had never been intimate with a guy before. That led to us kissing and exploring her sexuality. It was awkward and comical at times for a paraplegic guy to be sexing a paraplegic girl, but mostly it was very intimate and lots of fun. I knew about urological stuff and could identify with her concerns with body image issues, so she could relax with me and be at ease. We went slow and she gradually got more comfortable and came to like having someone look at her body, not in a medical way, but with sexual desire. Lots of discoveries for us as we went along, trying everything, stuff like finding that using a wand and oral was able to get her to have multiple orgasms in a row, a really special moment for both of us. We were scared about autonomic dysreflexia, but it wasn't an issue. We spent the better part of a year just playing with each other's bodies. It was great. She went on to date and have relationships and eventually got married. We still keep in touch on Facebook and I'm really happy for her. I'm married to a man with a Barbie butt. But seriously, my husband has Crohn's disease and had surgery to remove his large intestine and place an ostomy bag a month before we met. 3 years ago he had his anus removed and his butthole sewn shut. Hence the smooth Barbie butt. Sex is completely normal and he's an excellent lover. The ostomy bag doesn't really get in the way and we've only had 2 accidents in the 5 years we've been together. It wasn't the end of the world either. He's incredibly attentive, caring, and very respectful. The biggest difference was he had a horrible self-image sexually due to closed-minded people he had been with before. A little open-mindedness can go a long way. You might end up with your soulmate who can actually listen to what your body is saying at the right moment. Repeatedly. Edit. Thank you for the reward, but please consider donating to your local Crohn's and colitis support group. It can mean so much for people to have a safe place to freely vent about their illness with others that know what they're going through. Please feel free to ignore this if it's too personal or invasive, but what is the purpose of getting the anus removed? For him, as Crohn's affects people differently, they originally hoped to give him something called a J-pouch. Basically a large intestine created from sewing 2 sections of small intestine together. That would need an exit. However, his rectum was badly scared, essentially useless and keeping him sick. So he decided to keep the pouch instead of hoping extensive surgery and rehabilitation would work. No need to keep an exit that wasn't going to be used. A couple of years back I met a lady that was missing a lower leg and had a deformed arm. Took her to my place and went to bed. Not really anything unusual about it at all up until this point. In the middle of the night I need to go to the bathroom, so I step out of the bed and onto her leg, her prosthetic leg that she had taken off and placed under the bed. I look down and see a foot. This is unusual to me because it has never happened before and I legit In my drunken train of thought there was a dead body under the bed. It scared the crap out of me. It took me half a minute to realize it was hers. I had sex with someone who had spina bifida and was wheelchair bound. It was pretty normal other than trying to avoid his urostomy bag as I didn't want to accidentally disconnect it and cause a leak. He could transfer himself in and out of bed with ease and had incredible upper body strength, so he tossed me around a bit. We had intercourse, but he couldn't ejaculate, and although he could maintain an erection he couldn't feel it fully. His legs were flaccid, which is typical in someone who doesn't walk. Since he had limited sensation, I was worried at first I would hurt him by leaning on him wrong or bending him in a way that legs don't go. But we managed fine. I am a nurse. Not his nurse. But a nurse just the same. I am not sure if that helped with my comfort level of his deformities or not. Super cool dude. Very giving lover. And was really great at phone/online sex. The most amazing imagination of anyone I have ever fucked. I've posted this before, but it's a nice story. A few years ago I hooked up with this girl who worked at my local pharmacy. She was smoking hot, petite, with a gorgeous smile. She also had a deformed arm. Not quite a T-Rex arm, but a very slender arm ending in a couple of very tiny nubs where her fingers would have been. I got to know her and then asked her out, and we went on a couple of dates. She was moving overseas, so she didn't want anything serious, and I was fine with that. The sex was awesome. Just pure animalistic rutting. Like two monkeys fucking for their species. We did it everywhere. One weekend I was chilling at her house and we got a little drunk and high. Then we started getting down with the nastiness and she asked me if she could play with my butt. I was fine with butt play and off she went. She was amazing. Doing all kind of funky things like milking my prostate and such. I never knew I'd really get into that sort of thing, but it was great. Then she said, "I'm going to try something, baby. Just relax." That's when I felt something bigger than a few fingers getting stuffed into my bunghole. It was girthier, but it felt pretty neat, so I closed my eyes and relaxed as she did her magic. Then I heard her say, "This is so cool." And I looked down. She'd inserted her deformed arm, nubby little mung fingers and everything, inside me up to about halfway up her forearm. To cut a long story short, that's how we both discovered a certain fetish. She moved away a few months later, but it was fun while it lasted. TL, Doctor got turned into a ventriloquist doll by a cute girl with a deformed arm. Not sex per se, but I did have a BDSM dom, and good friend, who was blind. Everything was very touch and sound based. He loved the sound of leather and the feel of lace and ribbons, and he would get a feel for what I was wearing by feeling it and having me describe the color. He had a preference for fat people since we feel softer, and had a big thing for moaning, the sounds of impact from a flogger, etc. Basically, anything sensual that didn't involve sight. BDSM play with a blind person is pretty much the same, just with a bit more communication. For example, if he was spanking me with a paddle, he would always have me confirm that it was hitting the right spot. Though his aim was really impressive, since he couldn't see my face and expressions, he would always check in with me to make sure I was doing okay and was still enjoying it. This is good practice whether you can see or not, actually. I would often joke that he only liked me because he couldn't see how ugly I was, but he was adamant that attractiveness is so much more than a visual thing. It was super sweet, and sexy, how little aspects like my voice, the feel of my body, my personality, etc. were what made me attractive to him. Fuck it, not what you asked necessarily, but I'll follow suit and talk about having sex with someone with schizophrenia and sexomnia. Not a missing leg, but interesting nonetheless. I would be having sex with my ex-BF and he would just shut off. I didn't know what was happening at the time, but he would see or hear things that freaked him out or took him out of the mood. He would just shut down and lay there quietly. I would lay there with him and ask him what's wrong. Very strange to go from 80 to 0 and your BF to just lay there quietly and still. It would happen when we were out to dinner too. He would literally just stop talking to me and we'd have to eat in silence for the rest of the date. Now he also has sexomnia, and that was by far the weirdest. I woke up and he was grasping my mound with a super fucking hard fist with the fingers pressed to my vagina over my clothes. I call this the vagina claw. First of all folks, this is a weird fucking sex move. I was perplexed why XBF would pull this fucking weird ass move if he wanted to wake up and fuck. No kissing on the neck, no dick nudges, just vagina claw. Single hand move with no other contact. Second, the intensity. He was using all his force on this vagina claw move and it was fucking bizarre. I tried to move him away, but he seemed to really fucking want sex apparently, so I maneuvered and started blowing him. Well, he woke up. And he looked at me like I had two heads, wondering why the fuck I was giving him a blowjob when he was trying to sleep. Like I started this whole shit. We went back to bed. He's tried to initiate sex a couple times and has zero memory of it. Off and on dated a blind gal in college. Sex was lots of fun but had to make sure her dog was in the room but unable to reach/assist. Without being too explicit, the dog took a few times to get used to her orgasm without being distressed, and we had to stick to fun in the bed or he would be a tripping hazard. I also took a few elbows to the nose as we adjusted in the bed before we learned to talk a bit more, and that it made sense for her to pretty much keep a hand on the back my neck/forearm so she could kiss me when she wanted to rather than just me having that luxury. Best advice I can say is after you get the nervous first time out of the way, spend a good long time just establishing touch intimacy so your blind partner can know their way around you. That and gain consent for each new area touching. BC body language is so critical in avoiding surprises. She also loved sensory play with ice cubes. That's everything I can think of. We didn't work out. BC she couldn't see herself with me in the long run but mostly BC I wanted to travel and move and she had some understandable anxiety about that which wasn't a priority for her. I told her using a pun to break it off was the best way to get bad news.